Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
We're in the midst of an exciting new series on your favorite topic, Dr. Shabir, hadith, and we are looking now at the collections of hadith. So the hadith were eventually collected into books, and there are 6 famous hadith collections. So we want to talk about those, when they were developed, who developed them, a little bit about how Muslims have judged these different hadith collections. So let's begin with you, Dr. Shabir.
Yeah, it's my favorite topic. And of course, more broadly speaking, the topic is taking a balanced approach to hadith, which I believe should be between outright rejection and wholesale acceptance. It should be a balance in between, whereas we take what is authentic and we are cautious about what is not authentic. To be able to do this, we need to have an overview of where the hadith books were written, by whom, when, and so on. So we see the historical influences that shaped the collections themselves, because it's not just like straight from the Prophet, peace be upon him. There's the passage of time and the shifting of place and so on, and persons. Okay, so the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is known to have passed away in the year 632 of the Common Era, which is more than 1400 years ago. We've entered a new Islamic year, 1435. So this is about 1434 years after the death of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, from the year 632 of the Hijrah. So 632 of the Common Era. The hadith books, which came to be known as the Sihah Sitta, or the 6 authentic books, were all written in the 3rd century of the Islamic era. So you have to say, more than 200 years after the death of our Prophet, peace be upon him. Al-Imam al-Bukhari is the one who is most famous among the 6, and in fact the earliest among the 6.
So Dr. Shabir, before that, I understand that many people were coming up with collections of books, right?
Yes. So before
collections of hadith, sorry.
Yes, before Imam al-Bukhari, naturally they were already Muslims, they were already practicing Islam, they were already praying and fasting and giving charity and making the Hajj and so on. They were doing the things that Muslims have always done. And these things Muslims consciously tried to follow the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in doing. Of course, they would go with the Quran, which is our prime document and teaching, recited, memorized, always being followed by Muslims. But the details of many things are not in the Quran. So Muslims would try to obviously remember how the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, lived out all of these commands from the Quran, and they would try to follow those commands and those teachings in their own lives. So there was already a living tradition among Muslims, even before you talk about having a hadith book. Just as the Quran can be in the minds of Muslims even before you have it on a printed record, in a similar way, the hadiths could be in the minds of Muslims before you have it in a printed document. But over time, printed documents have started to emerge, and that's good because the human mind is pliable. When something is written, it is more fixed. One can still make mistakes even in copying a written document, but one's mind could be changing on a daily basis. Today we know one thing, tomorrow we forget it. Then we might misremember things. We might think we remember accurately, but what we think we remember actually could be quite mistaken. So human minds are not so dependable as the written record. So people have tried over time to produce written records, just as they did with the Quran. They try now with the Hadith. The difference is that the Quran had this done for it very early.
From the beginning, yes. But the Hadith was much later, I feel, because I think in the beginning the Prophet Muhammad told people, according to the Hadith, the Prophet Muhammad was telling people, do not write anything of me, that you already have a book, right? You already have the Quran. So, it was over time. It was after many years that people started to pick pieces and write it down about things that they remembered about the Prophet Muhammad. And then all of these collections, massive collections everywhere, right? People were coming up with their own hadith collections. So how did these 6, Dr. Shabir, become popular?
For a variety of reasons. Perhaps the most important reason is that the 6 emerged at a time when Muslim scholars had developed what they call the science of hadith. Which is a collection of principles and practices to ensure that if somebody says that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said something, we must have a dependable record. It must be traced all the way back to the Prophet, peace be upon him, through a chain of relay persons. So even though these hadith books, the 6 that we're talking about, were produced in the 3rd century. Each hadith that it mentions must have a reliable chain of persons who related one from another all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And now to break this down so everybody can understand, and the Gospel according to Mark is a collection of some 83 little episodes in the life of Jesus. Something Jesus said, some place he went, and something was happening, and so on. So 83 little snippets like that. So Mark has strung them together by giving some kind of glue to hold them together. Like he might say, immediately Jesus said this, or Jesus went over to the other place and he said this, and so on. So there are connections that give some kind of context and bring the pieces together. Now, those connections, especially when Mark uses the term immediately, you can see that what the other Gospels describe as having taken place after some time, Mark has it that is done immediately. It creates a sense of urgency and dynamism within the Gospel according to Mark. But these fillers are thought to be from Mark himself. So wouldn't it have been more authentic if we had just the snippets by themselves? So hadiths are like that. They're just the snippets by themselves. Each one that the hadith scholars are careful to itemize, and they're not joining it to something else because they know the joining will be artificial. And joining one thing to another can create a new context that will hide the specificity of each narrative by itself. Now, this is both good and bad in that, on the one hand, we have the snippets preserved accurately, but on the other hand, we lost context because the context should never be invented, but it would have been good if this was preserved from the very inception, but it wasn't. Sometimes the hadith itself will include its own context. It will say that, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was in such and such a place, such and such a time, and this is what he said. But often the hadith is given just in the wording of what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, and we lack the context. Nonetheless, seeing that they were written within the 3rd century, they were written at a time when the scholars are careful to see that we must have this long chain of narrators going all the way back to the Prophet, and we must know the chain of narrators. We cannot have some vague thing that somebody said that somebody told me. No, we must know who is the person and who exactly told him or her. And we must know that informer. And we must know these persons for their accuracy in reporting, which only comes through statistical study. We study many reports that are known to be from them, compare those reports with their contemporaries to see who is making mistakes where. And so we know who is an accurate reporter, who is a not so accurate reporter, and who is even a liar. And scholars then drew up books that they call biographical dictionaries, Asma' or Rijal in Arabic, and they itemize the persons. Okay, this person, he was born in this place, these are his teachers, these are his students. This is the rating that scholars of the science have given him. So they might say this one is accurate, this other person is a liar, even a Dajjal, which we know to be like, a bad sort of very, very bad liar. Okay, so with this in mind, the scholars set out to work. So in the 3rd century, we have scholars like Imam Bukhari and Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, and Nasa'i. They set to work to collect those narratives which would meet the criteria of having this kind of traceable chain back to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and reliable chains. The most effective and far-reaching dawah we can do these days is on social media. That's why we're developing the Muslim Media Hub. We're harnessing the power of media to spread the message of Islam. Please support this project at QuranSpeaks.com and share in the reward from God.